Good morning. I'm Amresh Tiwary, editor, publisher, Double Helical. This is being published from Delhi NCR region and very reputed health magazine. It's my I feel pleasure to announce it. We have already completed a decade, 10 years back we started. Today we have the webinar on the topic of long-term impact of COVID-19. This webinar will critically explore the transformative phase of COVID-19 started of various today we have the including migraine, lung disease, heart disease, autoimmune disease, chronic kidney, and more and more. Dr. Arun is a medical advisor, clinical research and innovation at Apollo Group Hospital and former dean of Maulana Azad Medical College will moderate of this seminar. We have the eminent speakers like Dr. M.C. Mishra, former director of All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi, and Dr. Subbu Apparsundarm, CDO and CEO at Celix Biosciences INC Network, New Jersey, USA. Dr. Ramesh Goyal, former Vice Chancellor, Delhi Pharmaceutical Science and Research University in Delhi. And the most eminent Dr. Sanjay Rai, he is a senior professor, Center of Medicine, All India Institute of Medical Science, and most respected Dr. Amitabh Banerjee, he is a professor emeritus, community medicine and epidemiology, Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College and Research Center, Pune. Now, I would like to start with a small video that is made by Dr. M.C. Mishra. And then after I will hand over this over to Dr. Agarwal to moderate this webinar. Thank you. Please have a look of the small video made by Dr. M.C. Mishra.
Now, basically, psychological symptoms or neurological symptoms are also linked to immunology. That is our pratirodhak kshamta against a disease. So our thoughts and emotions actually affect, as I mentioned already, our immune system. So any stress, anxiety, any fear, negative emotions, they weaken our immune system. We must understand that. Yoga, including meditation, mindfulness, positive attitude, very, very important. Our emotions, relaxation strengthen our immune system. Take good sleep of 7-8 hours sleep. That will strengthen your immune system. That's very, very important to understand that. Pranayam is the key to unlock our self-healing potential, your self-healing potential. I cannot overemphasize this. We must continue with this to not get into the lung complication, as most people who have succumbed to this disease in our critical care units across the globe have been those who have not been, whose lungs have been affected badly and they could not rejuvenate their lungs by their own efforts. And then we help them by giving oxygen under pressure, non-invasive ventilation, BiPAP, mechanical ventilation, and then naturally many a times it doesn't help either. So let's improve our lung capacity in the first week of illness so that we don't land up in this situation in the second week. Now, we need to put greater importance on proper and healthy living. That cannot be replaced by anything else. Our achar, that is physical activity and exercise, cannot be replaced with anything, and that has to be done by individual himself or herself. Vichar is right kind of positive thoughts, attitude towards life. It's crucial, it's vital for our well-being. What kind of food we eat? Ahar, healthy, nourishing food with adequate intake of fresh water, coconut water, or any other shikanji, whatever, balanced intake of fresh food, green salads, sprouts, unrefined cereals, 4 to 5 servings of fresh fruits. It may be as simple as banana, it may be as simple as apple, it may be as simple as orange, it may be as simple as melon, watermelon, any fruit you like, fresh fruits, 4 to 5 servings in 8 o'clock in the morning until 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. whenever you go to sleep. So Sattvic Bhojan, what we call, basically a simple Sattvic Bhojan must be prepared and served with love and affection, and which can happen at home only. Nowhere else it can happen. Then our proper recreational activities, what we call vihar, to relax our body and mind, essential for holistic health as a matter of routine, and also help us recovering from post-COVID symptoms or whatever problems we are experiencing after we have recovered from COVID. Then our own behavior, vyavahar, healthy interpersonal relationships also enhance our psychosocial health. We have seen that at home, if we have peace and we have happiness and we live happily, that also enhances our overall health. So what I would say at the end, we must try to stay safe and stay healthy concept through our yogic secrets of centuries, which comes very handy in recovering from post-COVID symptoms, post-COVID sequelae, post-COVID syndrome, or any thing you are experiencing. We can stand as one humanity to fight the enemy within by using these yogic secrets, the yoga and meditation. May humanity prevail, and that is what ultimately we would expect and want to help each other. We must fight this pandemic together globally. World is a global village, and that is what Sanatan Dharma ethos is, that Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, that the whole world is one family, and we must think and practice with that philosophy, and everybody would be then happy. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now I request Dr. Agarwal kindly moderate today's webinar.
Thank you, Professor Mishra. Good morning to you. Can you hear me?
Yes. It is going to join very soon.
Okay. So we just now heard our Professor Mishra. How are you, Professor Mishra?
Join.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Right. Thank you. So today's seminar, thank you very much, Double Helical, Tiwary ji, for giving all of us this opportunity, especially we keep on talking on some important hello.
Yes.
Sorry, it's okay because the screen was changed. It's okay. So the topic for today is very important. If I try to recollect 5 years back, today we are talking about end of March. And if I try to go in early March of 2020, the COVID started coming to India. And then I remember the first case was there in somewhere Kerala, and then second in somewhere in Mumbai. And everybody was thinking, oh, okay, these are sporadic cases. Nothing will happen. And then slowly, what happened is very well known to you. Not only to India, but the entire globe. And I must confess that the worst happened everywhere. It happened in India also, but still we were far better than so many countries all around. So today's topic is very important. Thank you, Dr. Mishra, for giving us a very holistic approach for the post-COVID status. And I must say that perhaps this approach, which is being followed, especially in India, has become practically literature. One thing more, I will like to comment that this COVID story of medicine has given us so many new aspects of medicine. Perhaps at times we felt that the textbook of medicine, which we call Harrison, does it exist or not? There was so much of variation, so much of variation. So I will start my discussion now, and I think I will like to start, Dr. Mishra.
Yes, sir. So I think thank you so much, Professor Arun
So,
Agarwal, and
yeah,
I welcome
my
all the.
question to you will be that whatever happened in last 5 years, you know it, I know it, we all know it, entire world knows it. Now, still we are getting some sort of sequelae and all. Perhaps a very straightforward question to you. What had been our long-term experience of COVID vaccination? What
Uh,
are your views?
I think that has Dr. Sanjay, Professor Sanjay Rai will throw more light on this. But what in my own analysis of COVID vaccination has been that it had a role to play. How much we don't know, but it did give us confidence. The large populations, and maybe they were protected. Many of us were protected because of the COVID vaccination, like influenza, like other vaccinations today when we use it. Although there were several misgivings about COVID vaccination also. Even new vaccines like mRNA originating from US by Pfizer and Moderna, they are now considered that they were not good vaccines. They did not provide as much protection as our Bharat Biotech vaccine, which was basically derived from the virus itself, and other vaccines like the most popular one was the AstraZeneca vaccine, which has been produced by our manufacturers, Adar Poonawala's company and all that. So I think it had a role. This, I think, public health expert like Dr. Sanjay Rai may
Yes,
throw more
I'm going
light
to
on.
him. I'm just going to him.
So,
Hello, Sanjay. Sanjay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yes. So, welcome to this webinar, Sanjay. And I'll definitely would like to continue the question which I put up to our friend Dr. Mishra. What do you think was the status of vaccination, outcome of vaccination, which we keep hearing various positive, negative report. And I'm going to put this question to my all other colleague also. Sanjay, you being the
Okay.
expert of public health.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you, Tiwary ji, for having me here. See, the COVID vaccination started very early. In India, on 16th of January, we started COVID vaccination. In other part of world like US and Europe, many part of the Europe, in the December 2020 itself. And see, the policy was universal immunization for everyone. So first, I will talk about this policy. See, the modern medicine is a evidence-based medicine. We always say that our medicine, modern medicine, is evidence-based. When this policy was formulated, what was the evidence at that time? See, when the entire population was susceptible, I was one of the principal investigator for clinical trial phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of Covaxin. So I was deeply involved in this, plus as a central team member also, I visited many states during COVID time. So when entire population was susceptible, then the vaccine was very effective in reducing severity and death, not reducing this infection. So in fact, almost 80 to 90%, almost severity to death and deaths are in all the clinical trials based on the published data of the clinical trial. Like we published our data in Lancet, also this AstraZeneca, they conducted clinical trial in Brazil, UK, and South Africa of this AstraZeneca. The brand name of in India is your Covishield. So they published the data of your Brazil and UK. They didn't include the data of South Africa, and they published in the Lancet. If I recall correctly, 62.1% or 62.3% was the efficacy of that vaccine. Covaxin 78%, but severity and death, they prevented a lot of the severity and deaths when the population was susceptible. Gradually, population got infection and they developed immunity against. The first good paper published with a very good methodology was published in your New England Journal of Medicine. They conducted a study on 12,000 healthcare providers, and they found that the chances of reinfection is almost negligible, and if somebody is developing reinfection, the chances is zero. This severity and deaths almost zero. None develop any severity, and they published this in the December 2020 based on that observation, 7-month observation of the COVID-19 in healthcare providers. They were at the maximum risk of the healthcare providers of the Oxford. So see, all the evidence suggested that there is no need to vaccinate those who had COVID in the past. This was the all the evidences indicated that, but our policy was universal immunization. So we started with a very wrong policy. See, if these vaccines are preventing, that time, if they prevented several deaths and your severity, hospitalization, then the priority should be given to those who never had COVID. But somehow, and we see, even in this country, all the data were digitally recorded. COVID testing data so that was available. So even for the best to save many lives and best public health practice, that should be the policy. Somehow we didn't rely on the evidences and see, in public health we always do risk and benefit analysis, right? So in adult definitely that was very beneficial when the population was susceptible. If you see the data, 1.5% mortality rate was there with the case fatality rate. I'm not talking about the infection fatality rate. Case means we detected case, and then overall, when the population was susceptible, average was 1.5%. In few countries, that was up to 3% also. So a lot of deaths were prevented by vaccination during the initial phase.
So, Dr. Sanjay, I'll
Yeah.
come back to you, but the only good message which we all got from you, that vaccination helped us. Vaccination helped us in adult population, the major
Adult population, yeah.
right? And how much was the success rate? There was a variation, but can we say if there would have been no vaccination, perhaps we could have suffered more?
Not in this country. In few countries, we can say yes.
Okay.
See, we had very severe second wave, almost more than 60 to 70%, somewhere 80 to 90% population got exposure to COVID-19, including our children, right? So in this country, vaccination was not very useful, really. Based on the data, based on my understanding, I can say. But in few countries where the infection rate was very low, definitely I say vaccination helped in
Great.
reducing poverty index.
So,
Can I ask Dr. Agarwal, can I ask a question to Dr. Rai?
Sure, sir.
please, बताइए.
Uh, uh, what has been the literature on mRNA versus Covaxin, Bharat Biotech, and AstraZeneca vaccine? Because subsequent to initial hype of those vaccines, then there were number of reports that these vaccines did not work as much as they were expected, and they were claiming 90% efficacy or whatever it means in your biostatistical manner. So what do you have to say about
Dr.
that?
Mishra, Dr. Mishra,
Yes.
Dr. Mishra, this is a very valid question when we are trying to see plus or minus point of different variety of vaccines being used all over the globe.
Are there
But can I request one
lately on
thing?
this?
Can I request one thing? I will come back to this question through you to Dr. Roy, and before that, just allow me to interact with my few more respected panelists
Okay.
who are in front of me. And
Sure,
now we
sure.
have Dr. Subbu Apparsundarm. Dr. Apparsundarm, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for joining this webinar early morning from your place. We appreciate your dedication.
No, it's fine.
We appreciate.
I enjoy participating in this.
Right. So in brief, can we have your version of overall scenario in US and little comment on vaccination?
Yes, yeah. So I,
Please, you can cover sequely part of it.
oh yes, yes, yeah. No, in the beginning, as you know, the Moderna vaccine was one of the first ones we got access to. And then soon after, the Pfizer vaccine also came. So we had a choice of choosing Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine. But initially, it was generally made available for elderly population. That was the order they started with. And then soon after the elderly population, they went into patients who are like high risk. Example, maybe people who have other diseases like diabetes, as an example. And then they gave to younger population. That's the order they covered significantly. They covered a very, very orderly manner. They were providing the first dose and the subsequent doses. It was very systematically done, very impressive. Like you said, initially the data was a very high percentage benefit was provided, but later on that number was readjusted with further calculations. But overall, it is our understanding that the vaccination really helped to control the spread. And that could kind of, to some extent, in the United States, it was not the low infection rate or the high infection like in India kind of situation. But here there was a good protection because of vaccination. And but there were some issues. There are a reasonable number of a percentage of population were not immediately accepting the vaccination because they always thought that it could provide some side effects, and also the vaccines were approved with not full data in terms of the safety. So there were some reservations with the few population, and they required a lot of convincing to participate in the vaccination that is there. Anyways, majority of the population has taken vaccination eventually, and
Yes,
yeah,
there's no doubt.
yeah.
What do you think the status of post-COVID sequelae in US now?
Oh, no, it is significant. It's significant, especially all the lung related issues, central nervous system, cardiovascular. So these are and also the gastrointestinal issues. So these four major areas, there are significant population having issues, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. I think
Sure.
I will come back to you,
Sure,
Dr.
sure.
Subbu.
Yes.
Dr. Ramesh Goyal, sir, how are you?
Oh, fine.
Good morning to you
Good
after a long
morning.
day. So you have worked a lot on the basic concept of vaccine and your own preparation patent which has come. So what do you think, just a brief comment on vaccination and your views as the very senior pharmacological person?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for for having me here. See, first thing can I share my PPT for just 2 or 3 slides I would like to show.
Please go ahead.
If see about before I go vaccination, if I talk, I will simply say that in the vaccination, people have been talking. And when I was talking to Tiwary ji, he was saying, "Sir, can we have this topic on the vaccine?" I said, "See, to me, it's a hype, unnecessary hype that vaccine has done some havoc or all that. No, I don't believe it totally. I totally believe Dr. Mishra, Dr. Sanjay, what they that it has really given protection. Forget whatever it may be. The diverse adversities bring some opportunity. See, COVID is gone. We can say like that. But viruses still remain. It is the modified form of virus which is still existing to me. I mean, although the WHO, if I say in this graph, I could make out that there are still the cases continuing. Now, what it means that it's a virus, whether it is there or not, but certainly this virus of concern, all these things are still going on. See, the long COVID, the main thing I will like to focus is only one slide. I will take more, but I mean, after this, the key slide that, okay, whatever WHO reports are saying, somehow this cardiac is still a big problem, which tells people that no, this cardiac is because of COVID and all that. Yes, there are many things, but I really wonder, is it a vascular event or the cardiomyopathy which is playing the role? Now, these are the questions which are asked. Now, I will simply come to this part. COVID has given, if you really look carefully this chart, the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 is the key, and it is a target of maybe another 50 years. It will emerge as very important target in our body for drugs, diagnostics, as a biomarker. To begin with, when it was sodium potassium, or I will not go into detail, but what is important, what the problem is, this I will like to see. In 2020 also, people were mixing this angiotensin 2 and angiotensin converting enzyme 2. This is the most unfortunate part. This is a figure of Goodman-Gilman. This red line, it is demarcating. People talk, oh, enalapril, it causes death and all that, but you forgot that that is an angiotensin converting enzyme simple 1. It was that for the angiotensin 2. And AC2 was something which is a regulatory, and it is the particular site on which the COVID was wild. So that is still there. And whatever sequelae you can take, you talk of anything, it is all related to this. This is what is my feeling as a pharmacologist. This thing has been somehow ignored. I mean, there is some mix-up in the angiotensin 2 and angiotensin converting enzyme 2. They are different. It is a regulatory protein. The COVID has disturbed this throughout the world. And based on the genome, you are getting all the complications, may it be of cardiac, may it be depression, may it be anything. This is what I would like to tell. We can go on talking, but this is the key which I want to tell. One should focus on this part, that the COVID has disturbed angiotensin converting enzyme 2, not angiotensin no, and tensin 2. That is the only thing. And with this, I will not like to continue with the slides. And I will stop the sharing the screen. But this is something which has to be looked in. There are articles coming in which indicate that yes, this is going to be a target for which it can be a biomarker or it can be druggable, something drugs. And I can say with pride that DPSRU with Dr. Subbu, the remedium, we could bring out the formulation, and wherever it is given, it is working. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Ramesh. Goyal. I remember having discussed with you during the COVID time also. And perhaps your concept, the original concept was so strong, and other people have already started working on it and will continue discussing. Now I'm coming to Dr. Banerjee, our friend from Pune. Dr. Banerjee, very specific questions. We are talking about long COVID or the COVID with sequelae, and you are the person of medicine, public health. Only a couple of months back, we heard that Pune suffered with lot many cases of Myasthenia gravis, etc. And
So we could
people
not hear
did
you.
link it. People did link it with as a post-COVID sequelae. What had been your experience and expert comment
Uh,
on this particular case, but as a whole, long COVID and its sequelae?
Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. This Guillain-Barré syndrome, I wouldn't relate it to COVID in Pune. The reason being that COVID occurred all over the country.
Okay.
Why only in Pune it should occur,
Yeah.
whether due to vaccine or due to the COVID-19. So I do not think there is any connection, because even in Pune also, the GBS, there was a clustering of cases in the suburbs of Pune. And regarding Guillain-Barré, it's a very rare condition. They found some Campylobacter, some water contamination. Besides that, there were heavy onslaught of Zika, dengue, and chikungunya in Pune few months preceding this Guillain-Barré. And this Zika virus is known to precipitate Guillain-Barré. So I don't associate with COVID, because it's it should have occurred all over the world or all over the country. Secondly, regarding the impact of vaccine at the population level, I am not very comfortable, because there have been studies at population level. The vaccine could have been used as a clinical tool for the clinician or for elderly and those who are at risk. Because in 2021, there was a paper in European Journal of Epidemiology. As early as 2021, they compared 68 countries and 2947 American counties. They found no correlation with population level vaccination coverage and cases of COVID. Similarly, I have plotted, or team have plotted data from number of countries 1 year before vaccination, 1 year post vaccination, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Singapore, from Sri Lanka. We found the case, and even from Israel. These are the countries which had controlled COVID very well due to very restrictive measures, like Singapore, Australia, and post-vaccination, there was a spike in cases as well as deaths from COVID. Maybe many reasons, maybe the mutation, maybe the Omicron came. So at the population level, vaccination did not work. And even as a demographic data, we have the example of African countries where the vaccination coverage is less than 5%. Compared to European countries, compared to Australia, 80%, compared to Japan. Japan also had no COVID before vaccination, but post-vaccination, it had a spikes. So there the vaccination coverage is 80-90%, and African continents less than 10%. There are hardly any cases or deaths. So at the population level, it did not work very well. It could be used as a individual tool on the judgment of the clinician for high risk groups. And one thing I would like to put on record is, to date, why we don't have the results of the RCTs conducted by Pfizer and Moderna, or even we should have had the results for the safety and efficacy. So we have not managed our data very properly. And regarding long COVID also, we have a very large country. We had everything on the digital platform. We could have followed up people who had recovered from COVID, and could have followed up people who have taken the vaccine, and then we could have compared. Then only we would have come to some. Now it is very difficult to identify long COVID, whether it is due to COVID or due to any other, because after everybody got COVID in our country, after that we are exposed to air pollution, we are exposed to tuberculosis, we are exposed to 101 pathogens. So now everything is getting attributed to long COVID. For that, we should have had a proper study, because we, as a large country, we could have identified many people who had never had COVID also. Very few, but being a large country, and we could have followed them forward and compared them with people who have had COVID, then people who have taken the vaccine. Some people had not taken the vaccine. So I think we can go in this direction from a digital data.
Thank you, Dr. Banerjee. Perhaps, well, India is a big country and there have been studies here and there, but had there been a countrywide, nationwide study in totality, perhaps monitored by ICMR, etc., if my friend Dr. Mishra may correct me, there have been attempts by ICMR also to collect, but is it in totality? I'm not sure. Perhaps it is not. So before I come to Dr. Mishra, Dr. Sanjay? Dr. Sanjay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dr. Mishra put a very straightforward question of different vaccination and their results, different varieties within India, outside. I think this is one topic which is perhaps may have many variations of opinion, but in brief, you can give us your thoughts about it.
Okay, sir. And based on my understanding of the whole COVID scenario and vaccination, see, there are a lot of vaccination program type of vaccine. So different technology used by, like messenger RNA technology used by Moderna and your Pfizer. The first vaccine, the efficacy was 94 to 95%. And then whole virion killed, like our co-vaccine was whole virion killed, old technology. This was the completely new technology, first time used in the human being. I agree with partially answered by Dr. Amitabh Banerjee also, that long-term safety data we don't have. So we cannot comment because of the various reasons. See what they did. First, you should have a comparative group. So for comparison, placebo versus vaccinated people, we don't have. Even due to this universal vaccination policy, we lost this opportunity to long-term side effect or good effect, bad effect, whatever of all these vaccines. That's why I mentioned the policy was completely wrong. That was not good for the science also. All the data suggested that those who had COVID, they are not going to die, or they are almost risk for the severity and that's all negligible. So we have data like there are cases of messenger RNA for like cardiomyopathy, etc. For your Covishield TSS, that is thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome. So clotting, etc. reported, and that's why entire Europe, although Europe developed this vaccine, AstraZeneca vaccine, Covishield, but within a month they stopped giving to less than 50 years of age entire. So they banned this to inoculate less than 50 years of age. Although in our country the majority of vaccination was with this Covishield only. So with studies we have data. Comparative study, it's very difficult to compare like for Covaxin. So there are very few mild side effects with the Covaxin based on our own data. But see, till such time when the follow-up was only for the 2-3 months, then there was a policy that vaccinate everyone, even those who were in the placebo group. So even after 3 months, we unblinded and vaccinated, because of on 16th of January, we in our country also we launched this program. So because of this emergency situation, so if you don't have comparative group, you cannot commence the long-term safety. And especially for new technology like DNA or messenger RNA vaccines, there was a need for science also to know about this vaccine, what will be the impact, long-term impact of this, which we cannot do. One, for this reason, we don't have comparative group. Second, this cocktail everywhere, and that was also not good for the science. They allowed, okay, if somebody has received messenger RNA, they can take your AstraZeneca vaccine or any other vaccine. And there were reports also by them that these are, if it's a cocktail, it's producing more immunity. So based on the report, and even that time we said this is not good for the science, and most probably all these reports are manipulated reports. So this happened. So it's, sir, Dr. Mishra sir, it's very difficult to comment that which vaccine was best, and we don't have any idea. So I can't guess anything that was good or that was bad.
Thank you. So, yes, during COVID, as you yourself said in the beginning, that normally we practice evidence-based medicine, but due to the situation which are very well known to us, we jumped into the solutions with even slightest possible clue from any country and all, and then everybody taking. Let me give an example of convalescent plasma, right? If I am not wrong, the convalescent plasma, there were some favorable reports from Western world, especially from US, then there were some quick publications. And still I remember Dr. Mishra in India, the first plasma therapy was given in Delhi in one of the private hospitals based upon the public report, I mean, those publications, and the patient family wanted it because they have read it, public wanted, and I still am, because I am chairing the ethics committee of that hospital where the matter came to us, and due to the circumstances, we allowed them to give convalescent plasma. And then it became the whole story of convalescent plasma. Everybody wanted it, most of them got it. And the outcome of convalescent plasma is debatable, I must say. And what do you think was the outcome of plasma therapy? Dr. Mishra.
Sir, well, you have already answered that. Lot of treatment, many treatments actually jumped the gun during COVID. Hope against hope. Nothing
Yes,
is
it was
working.
hope
So
again.
let's try that. So a lot of these medications also, there was some medication, I'm forgetting the name, which was used extensively during COVID. I can't recollect.
Remdesivir?
Remdesivir.
Remdesivir.
Remdesivir was extensively used, and the basically the what I would say the spurious remdesivir worked in Madhya Pradesh, while the real remdesivir did not work. And later on, WHO published a big trial on that, multi-center trial, where there was no role of remdesivir in the recovery of these patients. Same thing with plasma therapy happened, because somebody suggested, they tried. As you know, in short term, how can you judge any medication if you don't wait enough, you don't follow up enough, and you don't have a control group to do that? And that happened with the with medication like chloroquine, the tetracycline, many antibiotics, azithromycin. So I think a lot of medications were made, and we made protocols also for these medications, but none of them had proven efficacy. So that was something, and any viral illness is a self-limiting process. We all know that. And those who got severe COVID, they actually got hit really severely, and we lost a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of families. That did happen, but largely because of the lung involvement. And those who went to critical care units, the mortality was very high. And there were reasons for that, number of reasons. So what I would say that there was no strong level 1 evidence against either plasma therapy, remdesivir, and whatever trial WHO then came about the trial. And still people were using remdesivir and patients were demanding remdesivir. They were buying in black, expensive medication and forcing to be used. So I think that happens because hope against hope. Everybody was scared. Everybody was apprehensive. So whatever they could get hold of, people were using. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. I think another example as ENT person I always give is mucormycosis. I not only give, I think and think, why did I produce mucormycosis in thousands and lakhs of patients? Why did it happen post-COVID? There are many justifications, but the fact that it happened. Do you think this sort of epidemic of mucormycosis will ever happen?
I think that also, Professor Agarwal, that also happened because of overuse of these immunosuppressive medications. Steroid use, heavy steroid use led to this problem. We would see mucormycosis, you know that, maybe once in a year or maybe once in 2 years. And here we had horde of patients developing mucormycosis, which was unbelievable. And that also took a huge toll on the healthcare for the patients, suffered like anything. So again, that was because of the heavy use of steroids. Again, without evidence that it helps. So I think that was steroid use was associated with the development of mucormycosis. And we never saw this like GBS, this cases heard of like this. So that is something there with the mucormycosis also.
That's right. Dr. Goyal.
Yeah, I would like to comment on the medicines particularly, like remdesivir. I will request Dr. Subbu to speak that which particular protein it was not getting affected, and then we found that it can be affected. No, NSP 14, if you remember. See, remdesivir. See, it's a matter of genome. In the remdesivir part, Subbu will tell about that remdesivir, where it was effective and where it was not. Azithromycin, when it came, I was passionate about that ACE2. Except for azithromycin, none of the antibiotic showed docking score with ACE2. That is certain things. So what I'm trying to say is that we, no doubt, this epidemic, this vaccination and all, they have been successful, but ultimately the sequelae of that that virus attack, that has not been taken care of. That is still not being considered thoroughly. So to me, this will be a post-COVID or long COVID, whatever we are saying. If we little bit divert on this, we may have we can combat all these things also. Dr. Subbu, can you tell that what was that?
Yes, Dr. Subbu.
Oh, yes.
And we request you to give a brief 2 minutes observation of yours as regard long COVID is concerned, because that is our main topic, and we will like to, perhaps Tiwary ji is hinting that the time is now practically finishing.
Okay. Yes, quickly, since Dr. Goyal mentioned about, let me see. Yeah, Dr. Goyal mentioned about the remdesivir and why it wasn't effective. So as we know that the target is the polymerase, but what happened was the coronavirus has a unique protein and a non-structural protein, NSP14, which is kind of an editor, right? So whatever remdesivir incorporates itself and modifies the gene for the RNA, the RNA editing kind of removes that. So the remdesivir become not as efficacious because it kept what the efficacy of effect of remdesivir was being removed by the NSP14. So we kind of did some studies where when you block the NSP14 function, it actually increases the efficacy of drugs like remdesivir, which acts by working at the polymerase level. So that comment is there. And in terms of the long COVID, as I mentioned earlier, you have multiple mechanisms that are playing a role. If you just take into the CNS effects, one of the big studies that are happening is how this COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, opens up the blood-brain barrier, because it has many different mechanisms by which it kind of makes the blood-brain barrier more permeable. As a result, some of these cytokines or any other product biochemicals that were previously not going into the brain now can go into the brain because of this increased permeability caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. That is one thing. And then the second mechanism that is predominantly discussed about is the changes in the blood vessels that are supplying to the brain, the properties of the blood vessels itself. Again, the role of microglia and the astrocytes, they're all being affected by the SARS-CoV-2 because of this increased perfusion of the biochemicals into the brain. So the same thing with respect to the brain function itself. In addition to the ACE2 binding, ACE2 as one of the receptor that plays a role in for taking the virus, there are a few other receptors people find that facilitates the entry of virus into the brain that plays an important role. That is with respect to the CNS system. But with respect to the cardiovascular system, again, the problem occurred because of the long standing effects in the blood vessels, as well as in the cardiac tissue itself. There is a significant ACE2 expression, and that continued to create a havoc even after the COVID virus decreased in terms of the viral numbers. Then the other area that is the gastrointestinal system, there is a big role of microbiome. The microbiome dysfunction, that plays a very important role in how the brain and the gut axis is interacting with each other. So getting the microbiome into our body intestinal system is very important to countering the long COVID. And that is where I think there is initial comments were there in terms of the nutrition and everything might play a role, how to overcome the long COVID. And so blood, cardiovascular, CNS, and the gastrointestinal system, and the lung inflammation. Again, in all this, there are common thing is the cytokines. And today, there is no good drug to overcome this. We are still trying all the other regularly used drugs, like, that are used for the serotonin, SSRIs for the brain efficacy, the anticoagulants and other commonly used drugs are being used, but not anything specifically developed for post-COVID symptoms.
Thank you
so far.
Dr. Subbu. Thank you, Dr. Subbu. I think besides all the drugs, as Dr. Mishra in his presentation we have to build up our immunity and immunity
Correct.
by various means. Holistic approach is the approach. Dr. Banerjee, a quick last comment from you.
Sir, sorry to interrupt
Futuristic
you.
step. एक
Our
minute
time is
लेंगे.
by 11, our
एक-
time is by 11:30. Our time is by 11:30.
Okay, okay. I apologize. I
So,
apologize.
may I
Yes,
continue,
Dr.
sir?
Banerjee, you are at the liberty of time.
We are
Not too much.
I mean, it has become almost, it is I think, paap ho jata hai if you can want to find out any efficacy or any adverse events of the vaccine, if any. It is given that vaccine was safe. Question is, there have been reports of spike protein persisting. So very difficult. We have to have a long-term study of those who are vaccinated and those who have not taken the vaccine, who have had natural infection. There are many people who have had natural infection who did not take the vaccine, to tease out whether the effects are due to the spike protein of the vaccine or due to the virus, long COVID, who have not taken the vaccine. Until unless we have that, we are covering everything under one blanket. So we will not know any adverse event. Besides that, it is well established now, remdesivir had a lot of adverse events on the kidneys. Similarly, with ventilator on the lungs. So these type of adverse events, the people may suffer from long-term chronic conditions, chronic kidney disease due to remdesivir, then chronic lung conditions due to the ventilator misuse. All this will be clubbed as long COVID. So it is a very messy thing. We have to first define what is long COVID, and we have to have a separate group who have not been exposed to remdesivir, who have not been exposed to ventilator, who have been not, but they have had COVID, not been exposed to vaccine. So we should plan a proper study. We have got a digital platform, and then only we should have a long-term database. We should have an adverse events reporting system, which is still not very good in our country, given the mass scale vaccination rollout. Only then we can comment scientifically. Otherwise, these are all speculations. So this is what I deal with data, so I can only understand data. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Banerjee, one thing you can do at least with your expert thoughts, that what are the possible studies? I can request all my other colleagues also are required. I'm sure whatever we are talking must be in the mind of so many experts all over India. But if you can have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and send it to us,
Yes,
and we all will try to persuade our own contacts, institutions to conduct at least some data. And of course, if there is a umbrella data, that is ICMR and all, that is wonderful.
we
Thank you
should,
very much. I think we should.
data dividend is very, we have got a
At least
big,
India can give a big data.
yes, sir. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are having big in numbers. So when we are big in numbers, there has to be big suffering. And literature, हम नहीं देंगे तो और कौन देगा?
Sir.
Am I correct, Dr. Mishra? हम लोग literature नहीं देंगे तो कौन देगा?
Absolutely, sir. But it is a pity that so many studies were quoted by Sanjay, by Dr. Amitabh Banerjee, by others. There was no study from India. During acute phase, during post-COVID, it is incumbent upon our public health experts, the internal medicine people, and it's a laborsome. It's not easy to do this study where people who suffered, and a lot of people did not suffer COVID. So one can easily get a cohort of individuals who did not have COVID and now how they are faring now, and those who had COVID, mild, moderate, severe,
Very
whatever.
good.
So I think that has to be done, but it can be ICMR led, it can be Dr. Rai led study, but it's a laborsome study. It's not easy to conduct, even if the data is available.
It
During
should be a
COVID, I
multi-centric.
also
It should
multicentric.
be
Of
multi-centric.
course, it has to be. It has to be, but multicentric in India again is a very tough task to get people on the same page. It's not easy. It's easier said than done on a multicentric study, but it is doable. What I would say today, it is much more doable than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And it can be ICMR funded study. I don't think any pharma will fund this study, but ICMR can very well do that, and Sanjay can take the lead.
Sir, see, now it's very difficult to find any person without COVID. We did a study in
Sanjay,
just
there
after-
are number of them. I take, even today I ask those
Sir,
who come for surgery,
नहीं sir, मैं
did you
बताता
suffer
हूँ.
from COVID?
Sir,
No.
let me finish. Let me finish. We have data with WHO, and we were involved in the Zero survey just after second wave, and after this January 2020, the Omicron wave. We conducted survey in children. We have not vaccinated our children less than 12 years of age. Almost 100% zero positivity in Delhi, and that's why we recommended that there is no need to vaccinate children. And see, you will find different type of policy all over the world. US policy, even thus, if you see the CDC guidelines, everybody, latest guidelines, everybody above 6 months of age must get a COVID vaccine, fourth dose of COVID vaccine. Verbatim, I am quoting. This is the CDC guideline, fourth dose of COVID vaccine before the winter of 2024. So this recommendation was in the August 2024. So 6 months with the latest variant, जो भी circulation में latest variant है. So latest variant in circulation, right? So this was the recommendation, and they vaccinated entire population with the 4 dose. See, in our country, we never vaccinated children less than 12 years of age. We made a policy. See, neither the severity was there, and almost all the Zero survey report suggested that almost 100% children got exposure. So that's why, see, in adult population, this zero conversion could be because of your vaccination. But in children, we never vaccinated. So all the zero conversion is because of the natural infection. So this indicates that almost entire population, if 100% children are infected, entire population infected, in majority, this was a mild disease, asymptomatic. So that's why they never faced any symptoms. That does not mean they never had exposure. So this type of study, comparison between unvaccinated or
I think, Sanjay, things are very, Sanjay,
yeah.
One very important outcome is there, and how we can make it possible. Still, there is knowledge available to us regarding COVID, right? And what can be the various format of studies and all. But I still feel, as agreed upon by Dr. Mishra, we can give maximum literature to it. जो ये कह रहे हैं कि बाकी सब स्टडी आता है, हमने कुछ नहीं किया, अब भी दिन नहीं खत्म हुए हैं, अब भी हमारे पास इतना फॉलोअप है, लेकिन इट्स ऑर्गेनाइजिंग एंड एटलीस्ट वी ऑल विल ट्राई आवर बेस्ट. संजय, ऐसी कौन सी चीजें तो तुम नहीं कर सकते? डॉक्टर
Sir, there are a lot of
We-
studies. I
Huh.
can show you data released by various public health agency or even CDC. It's on my
I'm talking
computer.
of now India. We will talk about India, right?
So we have published this. Ki almost exposure is 100%. We have already published this.
Right. So I think though Tiwary ji, I'm sure there may be questions for some of the audience to you. तिवारी जी, अपने को अनम्यूट कीजिए तिवारी जी.
Yes, sir. I have question after
Please.
shortlisting. Question for all the panelists. I will
Yes.
go one by one. Sir, the first question goes to Dr. MC Mishra Sahab. Sir, can you tell us this question raised by Dr. Neha Sharma, CJ pulmonologist? Sir, she asked, how has COVID-19 affected long-term lung health, and what measures can patients take to prevent complications like fibrosis?
That is very important. And she is a pulmonologist herself.
Yes, sir.
She's
Why-
trying
why
to
is she
utilize
asking
your
me?
wisdom.
Then why is she is asking
She's
me?
trying to utilize your wisdom, my dear.
Okay. So
हमारी
let-
wisdom जो है ना
please
वो
think-
सालों साल की जुड़ी
Okay.
हुई।
So I think the long COVID encompasses a wide range of symptoms that can persist for weeks, months, and even longer. We have seen that with every illness, viral illness, including COVID infection. Symptoms generally would be in the form of fatigue, shortness of breath, and that's what she's actually referring to. That whether virus leads to pulmonary fibrosis and long-term interstitial lung disease or something like that. I am not the right person to answer this because I haven't followed these patients. But what my take is, those who suffered with moderate to severe COVID because of the lung involvement would land up with these problems much more than those who had mild COVID, which is a common sense. It is nothing rocket science here. And exact prevalence of long COVID is still being studied and debated as we are today. And it is estimated that a significant percentage of individuals who had suffered from like bronchial asthma and those who had already pre-existing lung problems, they suffered much more with long-term effects, even cardiac illnesses. Those who had during that COVID phase, the loss of smell or GI symptoms actually sustained milder COVID as compared to others. So I'm sorry, Dr. Neha, this is you have to answer this. As a pulmonary physician, I can only say that as surgeons, we are not encountering long COVID symptoms in many individuals. But our patient population is very selective. So all these patients might be going to you only, pulmonary physicians or general physicians, internal medicine experts, like that. Thank you.
I
Thank you,
think,
sir.
Dr. Mishra, one thing more we can say, in general, after COVID, they had been various involvement of various organs, systems, and perhaps lung has been the most affected one. At least हम लोग एक काम तो कर ही सकते हैं. Somehow it is my request and message to all, at least दो एक हमारा pulmonary rehabilitation program है, जैसे हम कार्डियक रिहैब की बात करते हैं, हम लोग डिफरेंट रिहैब की बात करते हैं, पल्मोनरी रिहैब को एक होलिस्टिक अप्रोच देके to be supplemented by medicine whenever required, that too minimal. I was trying to look into pulmonary rehab program published by various places, but there is no complete pulmonary rehab program. Tiwari ji, next topic रखिएगा
Yes, sir. Yes,
pulmonary rehab.
of course,
ठीक है?
sir. My
Pulmonary
next
rehab.
question.
हाँ,
Yes, sir. Why not? Yes. My next question
please.
goes to Dr. Subbu Apparsundarm, one of the biotech researchers. He is willing to know from you, sir. His name is Rahul Mehta. Could you tell us what advancement in biotechnology are helping in the treatment and management of long-term effects of COVID-19? Could you tell us, sir?
You unmute yourself, please.
No, there is, in terms of biomarkers, there was a comment about the spike protein, correct? And the detection of spike protein, people are trying very hard in terms of how the low levels of spike protein can be detected. And in terms of the, I have a little bit more knowledge about the therapeutics that are being tried, in general. And like I previously mentioned, there is many studies that are ongoing investigation-wise in terms of anti-inflammatory molecules. Anti-inflammatory is the main thing. There is a significant information about how cytokine storm is responsible for establishing the things that I talked about, changing the blood vessel, changing the properties of the blood-brain barrier. And this is most of the research is ongoing, at least in the US. Many companies are involved in how to control, control the cytokine-induced changes in this brain permeability and other things. And
Thank you, sir.
also the
Thank you.
anticoagulants.
Sir, my next question goes to Dr. Sanjay Kumar Rai. Sir, could I request to answer this question raised by Dr. Pooja Verma? Sir, could you tell us, has there been any significant shift in public health policies after COVID-19, especially regarding a pandemic preparedness?
It's a very good question. See, even during COVID, as I mentioned earlier, there was a complete policy shift. And to the best of my understanding, COVID, majority of policies were manipulated, political decisions. See, why different type of vaccination program for the entire world? If it's a causing problem, like COVID is still problem in US, but not in India. We have not inoculated with a single dose less than 12 years of age children, whereas 6 months and above, they are vaccinated with 4th dose. So the different type of policy, this is self-indication that even during COVID, there was a policy change. And why I'm saying it's a political decision. See, now change regime, COVID is, this is my assumption, COVID is over from US also, right? So and this will happen. When I mentioned this during COVID, when, if you recall, when there were an increased number of cases in China, South Korea, and Japan and Hong Kong. So the government of India also sent a letter to all the states, and PM had discussion with all the chief minister ki most probably we are also going to face a new wave. Tiwary, if you recall, that time I mentioned it's very unlikely that India will face, because the only difference between India and South Korea is both were highly vaccinated. Even China and South Korea are highly vaccinated, but the exposure with the natural infection. And natural infection is only protecting. See, we are not facing any problem in children because they had exposure. And so the chances of transmission from one person to another person is also very unlikely. Although after this Omicron, reinfection rates are high. Till Delta wave, the reinfection rate was very low. And those who had reinfection, this severity was almost nil. Severity and death. So, and this was the basis I mentioned, that we are not going to face a major challenge. There may be number of cases infection with the infections, but hospitalization and death, even few major hospitals, they closed that time. I requested that there is no need to close. It's very unlikely that we will face this, and this happened. Same thing today. I am saying that now, because of change in the regime, even in the US, the COVID problem is over. Now, from next year onwards, you can see. So definitely, we have learned a lot how to prevent this type of manipulation, which happened during COVID time. All the policies related to COVID, we can discuss in a separate seminar, either on contact tracing business, universal vaccination, children vaccination, and any we can discuss that was not based on the evidence. For initial phase, that was okay, including lockdown. Initial phase, when we had very limited knowledge about the COVID, that time all the decision we can justify. But after some time, when we generated a lot of evidence, we never used our evidence, and only all the policies were based on the speculations. So the one learning for the future pandemic is we should rely only on the evidence generated for that particular disease, and we must recognize the experts of that particular field, and this will happen. So thank you. Most probably I tried my level best to answer.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much, sir.
संजय
Yeah.
अब नेक्स्ट एपिडेमिक तो पेंडेमिक तो 100 years के बाद ही आना चाहिए
नहीं सर, अब उतना लेट नहीं
अभी
होगा.
आ जाएगा.
No. Now they will not wait. Because it's a very good business, not only for the pharma lobby, for others also. Even those step पे जो बेचते हैं, Amazon and others. Sorry, I should not take the name. But those who are selling online, for them also it's a very good business. Restriction हो जाए, all this. So now see, all these online marketing का देखो तो now village तक approach होगी because of the restrictions. And after this COVID also. So 100 साल नहीं होगा.
तिवारी
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Next question goes to Dr. Amitav Banerjee. One of my viewer is asking about, and his name is Vikram Joshi. He's an epidemiology student. Sir, could you tell us how have epidemiological studies help in understanding the long-term effect of COVID-19 on different populations?
Good question, Vikram. Not only long term, even short term. Short term, we saw that the Western Hemisphere had much 10 to 20 times higher impact than the Eastern country, than the African countries. And there was due to the higher obesity levels. More than 60% are overweight in the West, whereas in Japan, overweight is just 24%, India 24%, Africa less than 20%. So these are the demographic features. Then second was the age, demographic age, the younger age. Africa has younger age, and India and Asian countries have younger age, except for Japan, which is as old or perhaps older than the Western countries, but they are lean. Their BMI is overweight is very less, just like Asian. So they, in spite of being very elderly, they had the least impact earlier. And as I said, after the rollout of vaccine, anybody can see the data. It's from the Worldometer. After the vaccine, mass vaccination, Japan had a surge of COVID and even mortality. So this is epidemiologically, you have to see the demographics, you have to see the age structure, you have to see the, and unfortunately, all middle class Indians are fast approaching the American unhealthy obesity. So we are vulnerable. So this and there was a paper also on large data sets. There was a paper that obesity was the highest risk factor for severe COVID, followed by anxiety disorders, the panic, as Dr. Mishra has brought out in yoga and holistic medicine, the mind controls the body immunity. And during the pandemic, there was a high level of panic. People were not allowed to go out. There was a panic of new strains. People were not going in the sunlight, not getting vitamin D. All these things all added to the higher impact. So definitely, as Dr. Sanjay also said, epidemiological science was not followed, only bureaucratic and autocratic policy decisions were taken. And in this context, this WHO pandemic treaty also should be not allowed to be implemented, because this will again, in future pandemics, again, it will be ignoring all the epidemiological differences and having one size fits all, which harms certain communities where the risk is not proportionate to the Western countries.
Thank you, sir. Sir,
Thank you.
next question goes to Dr. Ramesh Kumar Goyal, sir. Sir, Suresh Malhotra willing to know that, can you tell us, are there any new pharmaceutical developments that's specifically targeted post-COVID symptoms like chronic fatigue and neurological disorders? What would you like to say, sir?
Well, yeah. See, there is no focus study for this particular part. Everybody is trying to find out, like in the sudden cardiac deaths. Well known, there is something wrong. They are trying to correlate with the vaccine or that, which may not be correct also. But the targeted approaches are there, but they are for the genome, different type of genome. To me, this ACE2 genome has to be explored. I have few cases, because they're all epidemiologists sitting, so they will believe in data or large population number and studies. But see, we have certain isolated observations. Kerala had highest mortality cardiac. The reason I remember 1984, there were cases that endomyocardial fibrosis was prevalent. Now, when you talk of fibrosis, it is only ACE2. We had bleomycin-induced lung fibrosis studies done after COVID. And we, of course, we were looking for the medicines which we found. We found two plants specifically acting only towards the ACE2. And that's how we have explored. We have tried to explore many things. We have got the drug. We are trying to have a SAR done. Now, other than that, I remember there was even Austria, somebody was working on ACE2 itself. It went to the phase 2, but it declined. It somehow the US it was not approved. So there are some scattered thing going on, but everybody is more focused on other part, this ACE2. And to me, the moment you talk ACE2, it is throughout the circulation. Even the cardiac, when we used to have the cardiomyopathy, diabetic-induced cardiomyopathy or others, it was in the fibrosis in that. It was related to renin-angiotensin system and that at that time. It was not, ACE2 was not there. Lung fibrosis for sure. I am following up 2 or 3 patients who had renal problem, chronic renal failure. I could prevent them not to use steroids or anything other beyond that. And by management that only. The proline is there in the tubules, the proline, which is responsible for the erythropoietin. I could see hydroxyproline, that proline is docking with the ACE2. It is surprising to me when I asked the scientists to do that. And then the Zydus has come up with the drug. Hydroxylation of that is prevented by oxime, that the drug, and that drug is preventing even IL-6 levels are going down by that drug. I saw that the original data of that when it was presented by the president of the Zydus in one of the conferences. And it is, I told him that just try to correlate this with ACE2. You will get the answer. To me, just like nitric oxide, and after 10, 15 years we are hearing, I am sure about this ACE2. It's a regulatory. The reason is it is a regulatory one. The problem with us is that, like, should we consider ACE2 levels or AT2 receptor expression? That is also an added problem to us. But certainly, the moment we know that the virus target was this, and it's a regulatory one, it has disturbed your whole system. But depending on genome, the expressions are different and the responses are there. So definitely, if somebody can focus on this, he will definitely have a breakthrough medicines coming out. This is what is my feeling.
Thank you, sir. Sir, this question goes to Dr. Arun Agarwal, sir. Dr. Arun Agarwal, please, sir. Dr. Arun Agarwal, this question for you. And my viewer is Anjali Desai. She willing to know, can you tell us what role has clinical research played in identifying long-term complications of COVID-19?
फिर से बताएं तिवारी जी, फिर से बताएं.
What role has clinical research played in identifying long-term complications of COVID-19, and what are some key findings?
Which discharge you are talking? Sorry.
Hello?
Clinical research.
Clinical research. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yes.
Yes, I think I've been talking about it in last 1 hour, that this is the scenario in last 5 years had been so different as compared to the entire literature of medicine, which is there in our textbook of medicine, etc. And this is a unique, unfortunate opportunity for us to look into. Of course, there had been clinical researches from time to time, and I never saw so many emergency research implementation permissions from different regulators all over the world, as it happened during the COVID, and some are successful, some are not successful. But somehow, in certain cases, it was useful because the virus is a self-limiting disease, and those who got self-limited disease without any complication, they appreciated the drug, etc. given. So there had been enormous clinical research during COVID time. But this is the time, though we are late, as everybody said, Sanjay especially said, we are late, but the government, I'm not talking about Indian government, every government should look into the long-term study of the COVID so that it will give us the learning. Where did we go wrong? Mishra Sahab, ठीक कह मैं ठीक कह रहा हूँ. We went wrong somewhere. Where did we go wrong? वो एक ऐसी स्टेज थी जिसमें राइट और रॉन्ग नहीं था, उसमें जो था सामने था. आप नहीं भी देना चाहते थे, पेशेंट के रिलेशंस आपसे कह रहे थे दीजिए, रेमडेसिविर, अरे पेशेंट से मंगवाइए, आप देते क्यों नहीं है? तो वो चीज ऐसी थी. आई थिंक नाउ
ब्लैक में खरीदी लोग हैं.
तो नाउ दिस इज द टाइम. Though we are late, still, as I said a couple of minutes back, still we all individually, we are related to some institute, etc. There are some nationwide, and we can always communicate with the national institution, like ICMR and all, that still they should form a task force where all the variety of research should be fabricated. They can always have no industry will come to fund you now. Forget about that. So it should be your initiative, the Government of India's initiative, for us to learn more, for our younger generation not to commit that mistake what we committed, and for futuristic pandemic, which I wish should not come, but one never know whenever it is there, so that we are able to prepare ourselves for futuristic such type of horrorful event. That is I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir, very much. And I request to Dr. Agarwal kindly conclude this webinar.
So thank you very much, all my colleagues in front of me.
Thank you, sir.
And I must say my sincere thanks to Dr. Mishra, Dr. Subbu. We haven't met otherwise, Dr. Subbu. It's nice hearing from you, Dr. Ramesh, and of course, Dr. Banerjee, Sanjay. And my special thanks to the team of Double Helical, led by Amresh Tiwary ji. Double Helical magazine is the one which is perhaps giving all sorts of information to medical profession, to the public, and which is useful. So I'm associated with this magazine for last 10 years. I'm glad that whatever all of us are contributing, it is taking a very good shape. So now, bye from my side, and stay healthy. And Mishra ji, holistic approach को तो हमें follow करना ही चाहिए.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल सर, वो that is our
Thank you, sir.
saving grace.
Thank you, sir. All of
Thank
you.
you.
Low cost.
Pleasure to all of you, sir. Namaskar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much.
Namaskar.
And have a great day, all of you. दिन आपका
Thank
शुभ
you, sir.
सबका.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.